Dee, does it feel like somebody flipped a switch and turned fall on finally? Because I was in the 80s at the beginning of last week, and this morning it was 41 degrees.
Well, here in Oklahoma, it feels like our lights are still switching on and off like a 3-year-old is in control. So I would say we're just going up and down, but let's get started.
All right. Welcome to the Gardenangelist, where we talk about flowers, veggies, and all the best dirt. I'm Carol Michael from Indianapolis, Indiana, where I have a suburban garden measured in square feet. It's about a third of an acre.
And I'm Dee Nash from Guthrie, Oklahoma, where I garden 1.5 acres out of 7.5 acres, way out in the country.
We call ourselves Gardenangelists because we are evangelists for gardening. We love gardening and we want others to love it too.
Yes, we do. And we aren't afraid to spill the beans and tell all of our gardening secrets, the good, the bad, and even the ugly. But that's enough of who, what, when, where. Let's move on to this week's episode. How does your garden grow?
My garden grows suddenly chilly all of a sudden.
I bet.
Oh, yeah. But I managed to weed a bit. I mowed and trimmed. I found some violas to buy, which they're not often around here in the fall. They're basically springtime. I helped my neighbor best friend get a tree and get it planted. And it was a good thing her brother came and helped because there were big roots in the way, but we got it dug. And
good.
So fall's the perfect time to plant trees.
What kind of tree did she get?
She got it's a hybrid maple called Armstrong. And it's nice for a smaller lot because it grows tall, but the crown will only be about 15 feet wide.
Oh, that's good. So it won't get too wide and cover up her whole yard.
No.
Good.
And so I went up to Courts because she has the wholesale license. And I said, could you get this tree for her? And she said, you want to ride along? And I'm like, I do.
Yeah.
So I got to go with her to the wholesale nursery just up the road and cruise around like, me somebody, but anyway, row after row after row of trees and shrubs.
Well, that's funny you should bring that up because I got to go to Bear Creek Nursery where we got the flowers for my youngest daughter Claire's wedding, which happened over the weekend. And she took me around in the gator and I got to see her whole entire property. And that was really fun. To get to go to a big flower farm was really exciting. So I went out to Bear Creek Farm and then Ladybug Lane, my friend Jennifer, she put together the beautiful bouquets and they are beautiful.
That's nice.
Yeah, it was fun.
Well, when I was outside yesterday, I went by the sidewalk and I thought, ooh, autumn crocuses are up just in one spot.
Oh, nice.
So that was kind of nice. And I did take cuttings from the African blue basil. I took 10 cuttings. My goal is to have 3 live until spring, which is what I did last year.
Yeah, because you can't grow it from seed. And so you need to take cuttings.
Right.
Because it's hard to find in commerce.
It is. And I can't remember whether it was last week or early last week or when it was, but I got another big haul of tomatoes and peppers out of the garden, which was kind of nice. I put it on my stories on Instagram. And
I know it looked like you had tons and tons of food.
Yeah.
What is she going to do with all that?
Some of it freeze, some of it eat, some of it give away.
Out at Bear Creek, they make pepper jam for their customers, their flower customers.
Yeah.
And she had buckets and buckets of habaneros and jalapenos. It was pretty fun.
Gosh. What about your garden?
You know what? I didn't do much in my garden last week. I was too busy doing stuff for the wedding. But let's see. I haven't planted my pansies yet. And I have black and orange pansies, but I know exactly where they're going to go. I just got to do it this afternoon. And I was out there propping up. It's funny that I wrote in my notes that I've been propping up asters and stuff. And I ran out right before we started to record and propped up yet another aster because bluebird can be really unruly this time of year. It grows like a bad hair day,
Uh-huh.
So, and it's so long and the stems, it isn't like the heath asters, which kind of flop. But they flop in a real dignified sort of way. Bluebird isn't dignified. So I went out there and tucked it up under something again.
Ah, that's good. Good old bluebird. Well, let's go ahead and play favorites.
So my favorite right now this time of year are the asters, the unruly asters, one and all. The butterflies love them. All the pollinators love them. And somebody near me has honeybees, and that makes me happy because I'm feeding them. So I'm happy about that. And all the other creatures in my garden.
That is wonderful.
So what about yours?
So mine was finding violas for sale because, like I said, that is not something we have here in the fall. And
Mm-hmm.
so I probably paid a bit too much, but I got some and they're tucked into the flower boxes on the front porch and they'll last until Thanksgiving, I would think.
Yeah, until it freezes really hard. And then
Yes.
even then they may make it for a little while. So what colors did you buy? Was it a mix?
So I bought well, I can tell you exactly what I bought. I bought the well, and then I say I can tell you exactly what I bought, and then I'm like, well,
You just blanked out. It
well,
happens
I
to me
bought
all the
one.
time.
It's the lemon chiffon, and it's
I know that
like a
one.
yellow. And
Light yellow.
then the other one is the dark purple frizzle sizzle,
I tell you what, Frizzle Sizzle, they're adorable. They're
which is
really, I don't think they're popular here in Oklahoma because I think they're hard to grow. Because I grew some Frizzle Sizzles from seed and they were the slowest. Remember when I did my experiment last spring?
yes.
They were the slowest of the group, but they are really, really cute.
Well, and we'll get into this in a little bit later because I can't stop talking about violas. But, up at the greenhouse, Courtney says it's really hard here and in Oklahoma to grow pansies and or violas for fall because they need it to be cool and every greenhouse
Yeah.
is blazing hot. So
Right.
it's just
Right. I don't know how they do it here. We always end up with tons of them in the fall because they actually overwinter in Oklahoma a lot of years. It just depends. And they look really bad in the spring, but they perk back up pretty fast with fertilizer unless we have a really hard winter. Anyway, enough about violas, enough about asters. Shall you do our quote?
but it's gardening that's needed here, and that isn't learned in a day. Gardening, that's what this place needs. And that is by Agatha Christie in A Murder is Announced.
We've used that one before and it makes me laugh every time. So we decided because of our book, which we aren't going to talk about until we get to the book, that we were going to talk about poisonous flowers in your garden and whether you should grow them or not. And the funny part that I find about that is, so I get a lot of questions about that from dog and cat perspectives, but I don't get a lot of it for human perspectives.
That's
And we also should make a designation between. So I'm actually a member of this Oklahoma snake identification group on Facebook, and people often say that snakes are poisonous, but they are not. Poisonous, they are venomous because they bite you if they're venomous. I mean, they bite anyway if they're not venomous, but they might kill you if they are. But poisonous means that you have to ingest it somehow,
right.
or through the skin or through your mouth. So there are poisonous plants. There are a lot of poisonous plants in our garden.
Well, the number one poisonous plant that I do not grow and won't grow is monkshood.
I won't grow this.
Yeah. Botanical name is aconitum. There's several different species. Another name for them is wolfbane.
Mm-hmm.
And people grow them because they have blue flowers and they flower later in the summer or into early fall.
I saw them in England in several mixed borders. It's very popular in England to grow monkshood. I'm not going to grow it.
And here's why. And this is from the Missouri Botanic Garden, and I quote, "Wear gloves when working with this plant. Avoid skin."
All in caps.
Yeah, all in caps. Avoid skin or oral contact with plant juices and be particularly careful to cover up any open cuts or skin abrasions prior to entering garden areas.
Oh my gosh. I can't grow this plant.
I'm a little afraid of it. And so there are some poisonous plants that I would grow because I know what's poisonous about it. And
well,
to
like
me,
castor beans.
Yeah, which is our next one. But monkshood,
right.
Off the list. Too
if they're
dangerous.
If they say all in caps, wear gloves and cover up any cuts. And I have cuts all the time because I garden a big perennial garden and I also grow roses. So there are always cuts somewhere on my body. So I am not growing monkshood. I would love to hear from any of our listeners who actually do grow this plant. And I want to know, well, I know why, because it is the most exquisite blue. There's nothing like it.
But I would guess at a garden center or someplace, they would have to put up a warning sign on this plant.
Well, I think people grow up from seed. I don't think they get it. I don't know of any garden centers that sell
I've never
it.
seen it for sale, and but I would never grow
Anyway,
it.
This is a good October
Yeah.
topic, really kind of creepy. Okay, castor beans. I love New Zealand castor bean. It's a beautiful plant.
Well, the thing that's poisonous about this is not the plant, but the bean contains ricin, which is highly toxic.
Yeah, don't eat the beans.
And so I'm not even going to read the description, but from the ASPCA, basically it's pretty horrible what would happen if you ate these beans.
Or turn it into a powder, which is what happens in mystery books.
Yes.
Ricin gets turned into a powder.
And it's a horrible, horrible, horrible death.
Yeah, there's a lot of abrasion, thirst, vomiting, so on and so forth.
I wasn't gonna go through all that.
Well, you wrote it down.
Well, I decided we shouldn't. This is a nice podcast. We don't want to creep people out. People grow castor beans because in one season you get a lot of growth, a very tropical look. So that's why they grow
It's a beautiful plant. And there's some thought by people who have vegetable gardens. A lot of times they'll put it at the corner of their vegetable garden because I know that's what they think, though. I'm just saying what they think. They think that it discourages voles. Does it? Probably not, but it looks good.
I would not plant those. Now, I would say that, but sweet peas, the peas of sweet peas are poisonous. I don't think they're as poisonous as castor beans.
So you don't plant castor beans near your vegetable garden because they're poisonous?
I don't plant them because they're poisonous.
Oh, they don't. I've grown it many times. I mean, they look totally different from regular beans. So if you decide to grow it, just be careful with it.
Just don't eat the beans.
Don't eat the beans. Digitalis. Do you grow digitalis, which is also a medication?
Yeah, I grow lots of digitalis. What do you mean it's also
I don't grow lots. Huh?
You said it's a meditation?
Medication.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's
not heart medication.
Yeah. It's not much used anymore as a heart medication, but too much of a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it could kill you. But we're talking, of course, about foxgloves. And in Oklahoma, foxgloves are hard to grow. They're a biennial, right? Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so if I decide to grow them, I go ahead and buy them as plants, and then they'll bloom that year. They have to be grown here in partial shade. I don't know what they're like in Indiana.
Well, mine end up in partial shade because my tree grew, but the one that I have the best luck with is called straw foxglove, and it's a sort of a pale yellow color, and it's sown all over my little perennial bed. So that one is done really well.
Never grown that one. Mine, the ones I grow always have the dots, and they're usually in the pink and purple range. And so they have guides for insects to get into them, and they're wonderful stuff. So
wait a minute, guides for insects. I told this waitress once at this Mexican restaurant that I always used to go to at work. So she knew me. And I said, those are fairy footprints. So she went home and looked, and she's like, oh my gosh, they're full of fairy footprints.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, they are. So yeah, foxglove is yes. That's a yes for me.
I grow it too, occasionally. It's just kind of a pain to grow, so I don't grow it all the time. But there's a lot of poisonous plants. We could go on and on. One I thought of that you didn't list that grows here quite a bit is oleander. Oleander is very, very popular in Oklahoma and Texas. It's perennial in some places in Texas. Here it is not, but people grow it a lot in pots, big pots, because it's very attractive. It's very popular in Florida. It's also used a lot in mystery novels to kill people.
Yeah. Lily of the Valley is poisonous, and I have a lot of Lily of the Valley.
I have Lily of the Valley. Mm-hmm.
And then
there's a lot of things.
The shrub yews, Taxus species.
I have a bunch of those too.
It's the seed that's poisonous. Now, this is a true story. So, and I probably should save this for another week, but I went on a foraging walk with a famous forager that we both know.
Yeah.
Here in town, she was here to speak. And she said, hey, you can eat the red part of the yew. Don't eat the seed. It's the seed that's poisonous. And, does anybody want to try? And she ate. And I'm like, no, I do not. So it's the seed. So I guess the thing is, and delphiniums are also listed on here as poisonous.
Well, there's a lot of things. I mean, daffodils aren't good for you. They're gonna make you sick. A lot of things in the nightshade family are various levels of poisonous.
So here's what I would say to sum up poisonous plants. I think both of us are saying, look, if it's touching it is likely to release poison into your system, that's a not grow. But if you know what part is poisonous and you keep that part out of your mouth, then
Right?
you're probably okay.
That's what I think.
Unless you have pets that chew on plants, then be careful.
That's a whole different thing. And also, when you're out with a child in the garden, make sure that children in the garden that visit you or your grandchildren or nieces and nephews, neighbors, that they know never to eat a berry in the garden without asking first, because that can be confusing to children.
It can be red. They eat the
A lot of
red
things
cherry
have red
tomatoes,
berries.
and then it's like, but don't eat the red U seeds.
Or, poke salad,
Oh yeah, don't eat
pokeweed,
don't eat pokeweed.
because it has berries too. And they're very attractive berries. So they could confuse those with blueberries and stuff like that. So it's complicated, and you need to be out there with little kids. That's all.
All right, do a quote. Take us into our vegetable topic.
I saw the chance to escape into the garden. I am rather fond of gardening. I was busily exterminating dandelion roots when a shout of warning sounded from close by, and a heavy body whizzed by my ears and fell at my feet with a resplendent squelch. It was a vegetable marrow. And that's Agatha Christie in The Murder of Roger Ackroyd. And we did that one time too, because we talked about what a marrow was.
Yes, and this was Hercule Poirot is the one who threw the marrow over the wall and then had to profusely apologize. He was in retirement at the time. That was one of the later mysteries.
Yes, he was. Are you going to tell him what a marrow is?
It's squash.
It's a very large squash.
Yes.
So in our vegetable topic, we picked when is the best time to plant your vegetable garden, because we got this really cool little garden planner that is the Vegetable Garden Planner by Lynn. How do you say that? Basinski?
I'm going to say Basinski.
It has a lot of consonants in it. And so we were sent this, and it is a good little book. And if you're one of those people who likes to keep track and write down varieties and stuff, send me your address and I will send you this book.
So this is where Dee doesn't like to write things down. I like to write things down.
Right.
And so I like how this book is organized. So the first 100 pages or so, it lists on the left-hand side the vegetable with culture information and a little table to sow, direct sow or start early or whatever. And then the left-hand side of the page is the garden planner part. And so that's where you can list the crop, the years you grew it. You can put your ideal seed starting dates for your climate on there, varieties, sources, and then you have dates, and you can note like when you harvested things. And so that's on the other side. And then the last part of the book, the other 100 pages, is a whole bunch of blank sheets just like that you can record stuff.
Basically, how did it go? So let me just correct one thing. It's not that I don't like to write down things. I just don't. I wish I were like that. And that's why I started the blog, was to kind of keep track of things that I put in the garden. It changed into something else over time, but it's not that I'm anti a vegetable planner. I have several really nice ones. I just don't use them. I wish I did. I wish I were better, Carol.
I wish you were better too, Dee.
So one of the things we were talking about is, when is the best time to plant your vegetable garden? Well, this year, my fall vegetable garden is doing a whole lot better than my spring one did. There aren't as many bugs, for one thing.
So if you were using this planner, you would have written down, like lettuce and the date that you sowed it and the year, and you would note that it was doing very well. And so
spinach. I have a really nice crop of spinach out there right now.
You would put that on your spinach page, Dee.
I also have carrots. I have beets.
But that's what's different about this planner. That's what's different about this planner. Instead of like, here's all of this year, here's all of next year or last year, it's by vegetable, so you can have comparisons. And I think
that's a great idea.
It is. And the author, she has 2 other books, Market Farming Success and The Flower Farmer, and an Organic Grower's Guide to Raising and Selling Cut Flowers. And she currently owns Seeds from Italy, the U.S. distributor for Italy's oldest seed company, Francescamenti. Her website is growitalian.com.
Right. And I've actually bought seeds from her many
Oh,
times.
now you know
I
who
love
she
their
is.
seeds. Yeah, now I know who she is. I knew her name looked really familiar to me. I have actually bought many seeds from Seeds of Italy. I think they're really good.
Good deal.
I love that brand. They have really good germination rates, and I haven't bought from them in a while. I
Now
bet they
you
would have black kale, which we talked about last
they
week.
would have black kale from last week. Anyway, that's the Vegetable Garden Planner, a crop by crop guide for planning and tracking your garden bounty each year from seed starting to harvest by Lynn Bazinski. And it is from Story Publishing. I'm keeping mine because I'm going to try to use it because I have, like you, I have spreadsheets, I have notes, but I don't have anything that does this. So I'm going to commit to using it. I don't care about you.
The first listener that sends me their name and address, I'll send it to you.
There you go.
Seriously.
There
Because
you go.
I want it to get used. I do, and I won't use it. I know myself. So there you go. All right. On our bookshelf, we are almost there. Carol's going to give us a quote.
The best time to plan a book is while you're doing the dishes. Agatha Christie.
And that takes it back to that story I told where she was out in her garden and she said, I just figured it out. And the person said, what? And she said, the ending to the book I'm going to write, the ending to the book. And he said, oh, have you been writing a book? She said, I'm going to start now.
Yeah.
It's a famous story about her. Okay. On the bookshelf, Gardening Can Be Murder by one of our favorites, Marta McDowell.
We have been waiting ever since we found out this book was coming out last spring. We have been waiting all summer until we got our hands on copies of this book, which Timber Press graciously sent to us. But this was a fun read, Dee.
It's a great one. I mean, she's fun anyway, but since we both love mystery novels and we both love mystery writers, it's a lot of fun and it introduces you to a lot of new mystery writers.
Oh, yeah. And so she did, and I tried to do a pun here. She did an excellent job of digging out all kinds of clues, motives, and methods and gardeners in mystery books, starting in the mid 1800s all the way to today. Really had a lot of fun reading this. She talks about the settings, the motive, the means, more means, suspects, mystery writers in their gardens, because some mystery writers had gardens, others just wrote about them. And then what's really, I don't know if it's tragic about this book, but my to be read pile grew substantially reading this. And I was taking notes like, oh, I want to get this. And I would stop reading and go to the library Libby thing. And so, can I check this Kindle book out? And so I am grateful that in the back, she does include a bibliography of sorts, a book list. And then I counted, there's like 106 books listed here. And I haven't read quite a few, but I have read
I've read
some.
a bunch of them.
I have read
a bunch of them. I'm a big mystery fan. In fact, when I wrote books, I wrote a mystery. So, and they're hard to write. I think she's done a great job. I can't wait to finish it. I'm part of the way through. One thing I thought was interesting was how many books. One thing was that I took a class it was an honors class at OU, and it was called The Origin of the Detective and the Mystery Novel. And it was through the English department, one of the hardest classes I ever took. But then it went back to Edgar Allan Poe and all this other stuff. And this book kind of reminds me of that.
Huh.
We went down and we studied different types of mystery novels.
Right.
How they started, because it depends on who you talk to. Some people think Edgar Allan Poe wrote the very first mystery story, very first detective novel. There are other people who don't agree. And there's some discussion on that.
Yeah. And then I tagged a couple of things in here. I tagged this book list for sure because, oh my gosh.
There's some great books on that book list.
Yeah, there are some. And there's a quote here from Ruth Ware, who wrote The Turn of the Key.
Yep.
She said, pretty much half the plants in the average cottage garden are toxic to some degree, but we don't think of them as deadly poisons. To us, they're just pretty foxgloves or majestic yew trees or cheerful laurels.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think that's why there are so many English mystery novels that involve poison. I really do. Because all gardeners know that a bunch of their stuff is poisonous. If you've gardened for very long, maybe they don't. Maybe it's just me.
Anyway, I had fun reading it. It's going to kind of stay out because I have to reread sections of it.
Oh, yeah. It's not something you're going to like read and then just put it away, because I just looked at the list in the back and it goes on for pages and pages and pages.
Yeah. And
The
then
book
I want to
list.
go back to the references and see what she wrote about him and stuff. So anyway, I loved it. Gardening Can Be Murder by Marta McDowell. More on that in a little bit.
Okay, cool. As I make my slow pilgrimage through the world, a certain sense of beautiful mystery seems to gather and grow. That's by A.C. Benson. And you found our dirt. I had never heard of it.
Found our
Or
dirt.
did I find it?
So there's an article out there that says there's a beautiful flower that keeps mice out of your home and garden. And I do think there's another mouse in the garage. So the question is, when you read stuff like this, is it true or is it just anecdotal? And the thing is, the plant they're talking about, the flower they're talking about is chrysanthemum.
Yeah.
Which contains pyrethrum, which is a poison.
Right.
So,
they've taken chrysanthemums and that's now a natural poison that's used for insects. It's a broad spectrum one. So you have to be careful with it.
I don't know if chrysanthemums would keep mice out, but I have read.
Imagine that they would, but okay.
I have read that peppermint, the smell of peppermint is abhorrent to mice and they will stay away if you put peppermint out or spray peppermint. And I actually tried that. How'd that work for you, Carol? Well, I still have some mice in there.
You know what works? This gray cat that is sitting right next to me that I was just holding. She does not like mice and she gets rid of them for me.
I can't imagine getting a cat and putting it in the garage and making it find mice because it's the garage.
Oh, no, that wouldn't be nice. Unless you have cats like we do that just show up. But that's another whole story.
So anyway, we'll link to the article, The Beautiful Flower That Keeps Mice Out of Your Home and Garden. And then the thing we'd say about this or any other claim like this is you should do some cross-referencing research. I like to put the words cooperative extension because not that every cooperative extension article is well-researched, unfortunately, but you're more likely to find the truth in those than.
Yes. Than you are in, because they're actually peer reviewed usually. So there's that. You ready for the next quote?
I am. I'll do it. There is no season when such pleasant and sunny spots may be lighted on and produce so pleasant an effect on the feelings as now in October. Nathaniel Hawthorne.
And that brings us to our rabbit holes. So I didn't have much time for a rabbit hole this week, but I'm actually looking at river cruises to see the tulips in Amsterdam and surrounds. I also want to buy some more bulbs because I do this every year, because right now is where everybody starts to send you all the sale prices for bulbs, right? Eden Brothers has one that came out. I saw one at Brent and Becky's. They were actually trying to sell big estate bulbs, like if you're going to try to naturalize daffodils or something. And, I would like to have more bulbs, but I have to plant them. So that's always an issue.
Well, I don't want anybody to panic, but I did some research for a Family Handyman article I was writing this weekend, and some of the bulb sites have big sold outs on some varieties, as we knew would happen.
That's why I bought those tulips early.
And as far as your river cruise to Amsterdam, I have a mystery book to recommend. It's called Blood on the Bulb Fields by Judith Cranswick. I read it earlier this summer. And it's good? Well, she's a widow that takes this job as a bus tour captain, basically for tours from England to Amsterdam, and they take a ferry across with the buses. And anyway,
that's like our colleague and friend Yana, who takes people all over the place on tours, although hers are mostly through the Northeast. But keep going.
Well, they end up, several people mysteriously die
on a bus trip.
Yes, because as it turns out, people are trying to use these bus trips to smuggle diamonds.
Oh, this one's really
out of Amsterdam,
really complicated,
and back to England. And so,
Carol, I'm a cozy mystery kind of girl. It
is kind of cozy. I don't think the title does it justice. Blood on the Bulb Fields just sounds horrible.
It does sound horrible,
but It is somewhat cozy, and this was her first tour to conduct, so she's kind of a newbie.
Yes, well, I'd say she is a newbie.
And then all this stuff happens, and you should give it a try if you're going to take a river
I've
cruise.
done a river cruise, and nothing happened. It was awesome. Okay, so now what is your rabbit hole?
So my rabbit hole was because of Gardening Can Be Murdered by Meredith McDowell. I am down in a rabbit hole of murder mysteries.
I cracked up. Okay, so we should tell people. Last night I was watching the new Tommy and Tuppence series, which is they're my favorite Agatha Christie characters, although there aren't that many mystery books with them, but they crack me up. There's a brand new mystery series about them, and it's on Acorn, and I think you can find it a few other places. So I sent it to you, and then you said, I just read my first Agatha Raisin mystery, and I started laughing because, by the way, there is also, I've read all of them, or a bunch of them. I don't think I've read them all because she's a bunch more, but I read them up until she died, and that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, so I read the first one, which is called The Quiche of Death.
Which is my favorite one. I love it because she's supposed to bake a quiche for the town deal.
Yeah. And at first I thought, I'm not sure I like Agatha. But anyway, there's a quote in there.
That's the point.
She isn't likable. So I did. The only thing I highlighted in the book was she said, struck down by a bane of cows. What is it? One of those peculiar agricultural diseases like swine fever or violet root rot? And I thought, violet root rot isn't going to kill anybody except your pansies and violas. And that is one of the problems in the fall is if you're trying to keep them from wilting in the heat, but if you give them too much water, then they rot, and you can just pick it up right off and it doesn't have its roots attached anymore.
Yeah. So that's funny. That's a very funny mystery.
That is.
By the way, listeners, very funny.
It is. It is. And then
now you're looking at other mysteries, and I started laughing because you're getting ready to be sent down into the Gothic rabbit hole, but keep going.
So my library I'm waiting for a copy of Rumor Godden's An Episode of Sparrows, which takes place in a garden in London, I think.
Yes.
And then you started adding to my notes.
Well, I said I've read a lot of Rumor Godden, but I've not read that one. And I love her. She's one of my favorites. And then I said, you haven't even gotten into your Patricia Wentworth, Victoria Holt, Mary Roberts Reinhardt mystery rabbit hole yet, which those are all the Gothic girls. There's more Gothic girls, but those are three that come up, right? Lots of locked rooms, lots of creepy houses, which then sent me down a rabbit hole about creepy houses. I mean, it is October, and I do love a good Gothic. And so I found this great post about the 7 creepiest manor homes mysteries. And so 3 of them I've already read that she mentioned, which was The Woman in Black, which is a short story. It's a long short story by Susan Hill. It's best if you listen to it read. I did that on the treadmill once. The 13th Tale, which is a modern Gothic mystery that is really good. And that's by Diane Setterfield. And then The Mistress of Malin, which was my very first Gothic mystery, which was by Victoria Holt, which is actually a pen name. And Victoria Holt, I read everything she ever wrote.
No, just back up a minute.
Breathe. Yeah.
Breathe, Dee. Okay. So I'm looking up Patricia Wentworth.
Yep.
I'm only going to read The Gazebo because that's the only one that Marta has in the book list.
Okay. You'll like her, though, so you might read more. But keep going.
Victoria Holt is not going to be on my list. I've read her. I think I read her in high school.
I did too. But you know what? I went back and reread The Mystery of The Mistress of Malin about 10 years ago. It was still good. All right, next.
What? Okay. Mary Roberts Reinhardt. I think my mom read a lot of her. I'm not reading any of those yet because they're not on Marta's list.
How about Dorothy?
And I'm going to focus on
Dorothy L. Sayers.
I'm going to get to Dorothy.
I'm sure she's on her list because Dorothy L. Sayers is the queen of the golden age of mystery and detective stories.
There are 5.
Aha.
Busman's Honeymoon, Strong Poison, Suspicion from In the Teeth of Evidence. So that must be short stories. The Fountain's Play in Hangman's Holiday and The Unpleasantness at the Bellona Club.
So
They're on my list.
you will love her. She's very complicated and interesting. So back to your rabbit hole. Now that I sent you down a rabbit hole of mine.
So the Aunt Dimity series that
Those
I
were
read
fun.
2 summers ago, those were fun. Anyway, the second one, I think it is, Aunt Dimity and the Duke, made the list. And there are 32 books in that series, and I've read them all. And you mentioned the Agatha Raisin series by Marianne Chesney, who used the pen name M.C. Beaton to write
Right,
those.
she died.
Well, she died in 2019.
Yeah.
But the husband of her publicist, whose name is Rod Green, with her permission, has taken over the series. And his first book came out in 2020. So I don't know.
If people
Anyway,
don't
I
want to
might-
read that, they can just go and watch the show on Acorn. It's funny too. And
Yeah, I
she's
don't wanna do
she's
that.
hilarious. I thought that, so remind me, is Agatha Raisin fashionable and like 40, or is she frumpier? I thought she was frumpy
She's
in the books.
She's frumpier. She's in her 50s. She's taken an early retirement from a PR agency that she owned, where she was very,
Irritating.
straight and matter
Yeah.
of fact and
Yeah.
irritating. And in this first one, which I read, which was The Quiche of Death, she's moved to the Cotswolds, doesn't know if she's made a mistake, realizes she's going to the pub and eating too many, chips and fish and chips
She's
and
getting fat.
shepherd's pie
Yeah.
and getting fat. So anyway.
Okay, in the show, she's much more fashionable and attractive, but still just as irritating. So
they
that's
did
fun.
say that. They did say
Okay,
that.
so I see you've got a problem. You'll be reading all winter long. And then you haven't
Well,
you also
problem-
need to talk about the Flavia Deluce mysteries, which are fabulous. I've read 3 or 4 of those. The first one
I've
is
read
the
all of
sweetness
those.
at the bottom of the pie. That is a great
and
one.
that one made the list.
Okay.
And oftentimes, since Flavia's Olive, 11 years old, wants to be a chemist,
Yeah, she's awesome.
but Arthur Dogger is her friend, her father's friend, who saved him during the war, and he's the gardener there, and so he often features in those. And she goes and talks.
Yeah,
to
she
him.
does.
Read all of those.
And then Brother Cadfile.
We both read all of
I
those.
love Brother Cadfile. I love the
So
old show. I've gone back and watched it on BritBox because they have all the old Brother Cadfiles on there.
Yeah, I would. I'd rather read. I read all those, gosh, 20
Me
years
too.
ago, and they're still on the shelf back there. I'm pointing back there. They're still on the shelf back
Yeah.
there. So,
Okay, so should we talk now? Now that we've just really talked about mysteries this whole time, shall we talk about the mystery of the fact that we need to do garden commissions and whether we will do them or not?
yes, let us do that.
You go first.
So now that it's truly cold, at least in the mornings, I'm going to get the vegetable garden cleaned up for sure, mow and trim. And if there's a good day when a good day would be like a good day not to be outside,
Rainy.
I'm going to try to rearrange my sunroom so I can fit in another shelf unit for starting seeds. And I'm probably going to restart my microgreen farming for the winter. So, because I saw True Leaf has microgreen seeds 20% off this week, I think. So
Cool.
me. What about you?
My plan is to go outside after we plan the next episode, and start cleaning out my greenhouse because I need to start taking cuttings. And when Jen walked by Jen from Ladybug, when she walked by my car the other day, she goes, "You have a lot of potting soil out here," because I have 3 bags. I said, "Oh, but I do cuttings. And I repot things in the fall sometimes too." So, I have to have good potting soil. What else? Oh, I want more bulbs, but I'm trying to talk myself out of that because I don't want to grow any more bulbs. I don't want to work that hard.
So we should have our listeners weigh in whether you should get more bulbs. I need to get bulbs. I've got to place some tulips in some places.
I mean, okay, so 2 weeks, well, maybe it was last week. I did buy some paper whites after all because Masha's kind of quit chewing on flowers mostly till I brought the wedding flowers home. That bouquet she decided she wanted to chew on, but mostly she doesn't bother them. So if I put them up really high, I think I'll be okay.
All right. Well, let's get this thing wrapped up then. Thank you for listening to The Garden Angelist. I hope you've hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode. We publish every week on Wednesdays at 12 a.m. Eastern Time.
And if you listen to Apple Podcasts, we'd love a 5-star review that helps us get noticed by others. Could you also share our podcast with your friends? Word of mouth is still the best way to get the word out there.
And be sure and check out our show notes for links for more information about today's topics, plus links to our own website.
And if you're smart, you'll subscribe to our Substack newsletter, The Garden Angelist at Substack.com, which is also linked to in our show notes. If you do, you get a link to listen to the podcast at least a day early.
And if you want to help support us, use those affiliate links. If you buy something after clicking through on them, we earn a small commission and it costs you nothing. Or you can set up a monthly subscription through Buzzsprout or make a one-time donation through PayPal.
It was lovely to chat with all of you over the Garden Gate. Bye until next week.
Bye, everybody.